CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Tired of the same repetitive government narratives? Then wave goodbye to the distractions and rhetoric of corporate media. For this is Anti-Media Radio.
But I want to get the language right. The government is in trouble.
You're all a bunch of slaves. Bunch of slaves.
What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness, but is love and wisdom and compassion toward one another.
What's your definition of media?
And now, here's your host, S.M. Gibson.
My name is S.M. Gibson, and you are listening to Anti-Media Radio. It is May the 18th, 2017. It's been a dark day for a lot of people of all spectrums. Of course, the big news that a lot of us woke up to this morning was now former lead singer of Soundgarden, Chris Cornell, passed away overnight, and also former chairman and CEO of Fox News, Roger Ailes, passed away as well. Not to mention the fact that there have still been more bombings going on in Syria. Today, the United States launched an airstrike on a pro-Assad convoy on the Jordanian-Syrian border. And that's not to mention everything that's going on, I guess, in the corporate mainstream world of Russia, 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 which still sounds like a witch hunt. I hate to side with Trump on that today. He did call it the biggest witch hunt in history. There is a lot to criticize Trump for, and they just want to give you the theater and the television show and not get to the reality of the situation. We're seeing Donald Trump over the weekend for the next 9 days. He today left for a visit in the Middle East. His first stop, of course, will be in Saudi Arabia, a country that we talk about quite a bit on this program because of their numerous nefarious activities throughout, not only in recent times, but through the decades. And Trump, who went from candidate Trump saying, well, you know, they were involved in 9/11, hinted around all that, which, you know, is common knowledge, to now he's palling around with them and they're getting ready to present to them another $100 billion weapons deal. So the corruption just keeps moving. It's just which shiny object is the media wishing you would look at while the corruption is happening in broad daylight. I want to go ahead and bring on our co-host for the evening, Mr. Shannon Madden. Shannon, what's going on?
Living the dream, Mr. Gibson. How are you this fine and lovely, wonderful evening?
I can't complain. It could be much, much worse.
We could be living in Syria right now, praying that American bombs that are targeted for ISIS don't fall on our heads.
Well, are they targeted for ISIS, or are they targeted to over?
Yeah, we're going to talk about that tonight. But really quickly though, yes, I actually got a chance to see Soundgarden in 1994 on the Super Unknown tour at Fox Theater, and what a show that was. They opened with Jesus Christ Pose, and they were touring on what eventually became their largest selling album that year, and they were on fire, man. Such a great show, and it's such a tragic loss.
Yeah, it is. I think one reason it kind of took people back, and we won't get into it too much, but it is how unexpected it was. Whereas, you know, when Scott Weiland passed away, I think a lot of people were like, wow, I can't believe he made it that long.
Yeah, everybody kind of exhaled, and they were like, finally, yeah.
Which is
it's sad that we have to say that. But yeah, with Chris Cornell, it was a much different story. By all accounts, he had been clean and sober for some numbers put it at 8 years. In fact, most of the sources I've seen say 8 years. Of course, he had remarried. He went through a really nasty divorce back in the 90s and 90s, early 2000s. I can't remember right off the top of my head, but he had kind of rebounded from that, had a lovely wife, had some kids. Things were really looking good for him. He just played a sold-out show in Detroit, was actually headed to some more sold-out shows they had at the final leg of their tour this year. And it just really, I don't know, it's really strange. There's been some supposition that seen a lot of, you know how when these things happen, nobody really wants to take it for face value. Of course, nobody wants to take anything for face value anymore. It does seem odd that a fellow that was kind of had a lot of things going for him, kind of juxtapose this with, let's say, the Robin Williams suicide, where he had just been, diagnosed with a terminal illness. This is a little different. I don't know if we'll hear some news about that later on, or possibly. I hate to even suggest it, and a couple people have kind of said I was being a little bit callous when I suggested it, but autoerotic asphyxiation took the lives of Michael Hutchins from INXS and David Carradine, the actor from Kill Bill and Old School Kung Fu. So I wonder if it's something like that. I hate to even suggest that, and I certainly don't mean to cast it in a negative light. Just I don't know, everybody keep their ears peeled and see if we can try to figure out what happened. Again, it's just it's brand new, so it's still kind of a rough thing for people to take in. Nobody really wants to believe it. I certainly did it when I opened up Facebook. I'm like, crap, this morning. So yeah, my heart goes out to their family. It really does. It's a very, very sad situation.
It is, and I think it hit a lot of people hard. And one thing though that is amazing in times like these is you see how people do get upset with the death of celebrity, and it's not a criticism. I know people take this as, well, I'm allowed to be upset because I've listened to their music for years and years, or I've seen them. And that's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. The problem comes in, though, is when you see culture completely ignoring the horrible things that are going on every day and sticking their head in the sand and just disregarding anything else other than this celebrity culture. Of course, fame is a commodity in this world. And if you are not famous and you're killed or you die, then there's not headlines for you. Which leads me to another story. I want to kind of flip the script a little bit on this. We've got a story right now on the left-hand side of the antimedia.org right now, and we're going to talk about a few foreign policy stories. But Trump advisors want at least 50,000 more U.S. troops in Afghanistan. And let me tell you, they're not sending these troops over there
because Afghanistan is still currently bombing the United States, right?
Right. Have they? Yeah. And that's the thing. That's what's so sad about this. First paragraph here is, while publicly U.S. strategy in the Afghan war has been based around the conceit that the conflict is in a stalemate, despite mounting losses by the Afghan government. Advisors have offered a classified assessment on the conflict recently, however, conceding that the Ghani government's survival is at risk and that the war is being slowly lost. Their solution, as with everything else, is bigger escalation, with reports from those familiar with the plan saying that the U.S. needs more than 50,000 ground troops in Afghanistan.
For what?
To ensure the government's survival, with an eye toward eventually defeating the Taliban. We've been in Afghanistan since 16 years. And I remember, first off, Barack Obama said it. The first time he ran, the second time they were adamant. Biden was saying it. He was saying it. We've got the plan. We're going to be out in 9 months, 14 months, whatever the number was. Now they're talking about they want to send 50,000 troops over there. They're not building amusement parks, people. This is military operations. Unfortunately, that's a business.
Big business.
It's huge business, and it's so obvious and so right in front of our face, and yet people are still under this illusion that it's for some sort of protection, or it's to defeat terrorists, or it's to defeat this or this ideology. Let me explain something to people about ideologies. The ideology that is presented to the majority of Americans regarding Muslims, Sharia law, ISIS, that stems from Saudi Arabia and Wahhabism. Donald Trump is on an airplane with a red carpet rolled out in front of him right now to go reward the behavior that America says that they oppose. Because this has
his own voters screamed and hollered and had their pitchforks and torches in hand throughout the whole campaign. Yeah, we Trump's finally gonna get hard on the Muslims. Finally, we're gonna do something about this Muslim problem. We're gonna ban the Muslims.
But see, and people need to know, of course, this has nothing to do with religion. This has nothing to do with Muslims. This is a group of people that have all the money in the world, and they get to do whatever they want because of it. People need to understand, and we talk about this probably every show, and that's why I feel like there's a lot of beating a dead horse. But sorry, the situation doesn't change. Will it ever change? I don't know. But when you look at what's happening in Yemen,
well, no, it's not beating a dead horse, because that horse is very much alive and it's very much roaming around. That's the disturbing part about it. Is whenever we bring it up, or whenever it's ever brought up, well, I don't know what you're so bent out of shape about Saudi Arabia. I mean, ISIS, Muslims, they're not ISIS. They're not. Oh, well, yeah, they are kind of Muslim.
Right. And then everybody says with Hillary, but her emails. We learned from those emails, which we already kind of knew this, but it says directly in her emails via Hillary Clinton that ISIS was being propped up and funded by Saudi Arabia. Nobody seems to care about this. Everybody seems to have their head in the clouds. I don't know what they're thinking, but this is a huge deal that Trump has decided to go over there and just coddle up next to him like it's no big deal. It's no problem. The big business that's being run, which there's multiple, but what we're seeing right now, just on a day-to-day reality, is we're shipping weapons, and this was happening under Barack Obama, just like it's happening right now under Donald Trump. No difference. Is we're selling Saudi Arabia a bunch of weapons and arms. They are then using those weapons and arms in Yemen, and then we are replenishing them. And so we are just funding the massacre of people in Yemen, and that's the business. We sell them the bombs, they drop the bombs, and it just keeps on going. I get it. Trump's a business guy, but what about Obama? That was happening under him as well. Nobody talks about it. Nobody.
Oh, well, he didn't have anything to do with that. That was the other parts of the government that he has nothing to do with. But Trump's on top of this. Don't you worry.
Did you see the tweet today by Congressman Ted Lieu? Let me see if I can find it real quick. Talking about how Trump the strikes in Syria today were illegal. Now, let me see if I can
think.
Find this. Well, yeah, no kidding. But I want to make sure I read it right, if I can find it. Okay. It was in reply to U.S. official confirms, blah, 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 that they hit the airstrike, they conducted the airstrike. And his response was, if true, and then he decided to flip over to all caps, this is frickin' illegal. Trump does not have congressional authorization to attack Syria, a country that has not attacked the U.S. So while I completely agree with his sentiments, 100%, that is true. Why today? Why now? Why do they pick and choose these times that we're talking about airstrikes? It's they pick and choose which ones they want because of the diversion. And they're going to say, well, because it was for pro-Assad forces. Let me explain something to everybody what's going on over there. They're killing civilians, okay, en masse. Now, whether it's on purpose, whether it's accidental, I can't tell you. I'm not the person dropping these bombs, but what I can tell you is for a fact that there are people dying in droves over there. And Assad cannot get rid of ISIS, and he cannot get rid of the rebel forces because we are funding them, we are arming them, and we are offering air support to them. So why today? Why is it such a big deal today that we bring this up for a member of Congress? Hey, look, I'm glad that it's being said, I guess better late than never, but it feels like it's, another distraction. Everything with Trump is a distraction. Everything with him, except for the stuff that they don't want discussed. Have you seen anybody get on TV hammering him for visiting Saudi Arabia? Meanwhile, our own Congress has passed legislation that says it's all right to file a lawsuit against Saudi Arabia because of their involvement in 9/11.
No, that was Iraq, dude. Why do you keep saying that?
Well, unfortunately,
don't you watch CNN? CNN told everybody with complete confidence that it was definitely Iraq. They got all of their prognosticators and their important people after, of course, Bush and Cheney gave their speeches and dissected it and realized that has to be the problem. Has to be.
Well, you forget.
So we bombed Iraq, and then, of course, now, wait a minute, they're Afghanistan. And, of course, now we're fixing to send 50,000 troops to Afghanistan because Afghanistan was no, wait a minute, they weren't.
That's right. Again, it's the cycle of the business. And of course, the big story for everybody is Comey. That's the big distraction right now this week. Unfortunately for the people presenting this huge, grandiose distraction, is that on May 3rd, just a couple weeks ago, Comey said under oath that he was never a part of or never witnessed any obstructions of justice. I'm going to go ahead and read you his quote. It says, under oath, that he has not been pressured to close an investigation for political purposes. Said, not in my experience, because it would be a big deal to tell the FBI to stop doing something like that without an appropriate response. It has not happened in my experience. So he said this under oath this month, and yet everybody else is running around like chickens with their heads cut off, screaming impeach, impeach, impeach. I hate to break it to you, but an impeachment of Trump is not going to change our problems. It's just not. They're too deep-seated. They're too rooted into the fabric of Washington, D.C., and if you want to call it the establishment, the deep state, you can call it whatever name you want to call it. The fact of the matter is that cash is king, and people do whatever they want whenever they want. Corruption rules.
Well, and again, impeachment, I mean, a lot of the people that are crying out as far as American citizens go for impeachment are decidedly on the left side of the fence, decidedly either Hillary or Bernie voters, or the ones that are alive. So I don't really get, I don't get what their thinking is as far as, okay, well, we're going to impeach Trump. What? So suddenly Hillary gets to step back into office? Don't they understand how the government works? Oh, wait a minute. I forgot we live in 2017. Of course, nobody understands how the government works anymore.
Yeah, I've got to throw this in there. Today, the Washington Post named Hillary as the strongest candidate for 2020. Like, there's not even words for that one. That I don't know why everything that we experienced throughout the election leading up to it, that anybody's believing the Washington Post about anything. I don't understand what is going through the brains of the American people. Is it just this repetitive nature that they hear something so many times that they start to believe it?
Or that maybe, as far as media is concerned, will repeat something that is completely made up out of thin air enough times, and it'll catch on.
Right, and the thing is none of this in any way, shape, or form is in defense of Donald Trump, his policies, and the stuff that his dealings and his actions. But you have to live in reality, and
let's rewind for a second. I mean, in the last election, how many years before the last election did we hear about Hillary Clinton being the absolute nominee for the Democrats, which is almost unheard of, because usually that's kind of, unless he's just an absolute piece of crap of a person, the vice president usually gets first dibs at that, correct?
Well, I think it was a given that Biden wasn't going to run, and not necessarily because you have to look at 2012 with the Republicans. There was a whole host of people running, and from very day one, everybody said, well, Mitt Romney's going to get it. It didn't matter if he was in last place, and Herman Cain was winning, which happened at some point.
That happened for a second. I still can't believe that anybody allowed that to happen.
And they still said the entire time, no, it's going to be Romney, because Romney is the guy with the money pushing him. Now, you get down this rabbit hole with people, and it turns into, whatever you want to call it, the new world, whatever people call it. It's people with a bunch of money and influence and power. It doesn't matter these labels. The facts are that people with money and power, they wield their influence for their own purposes, their own selfish gain. Sorry, that's the way of the world. It's human nature. People don't want to accept this. They think for some reason, and then they get it in their head that everything that, if you're a Democrat, everything the Republicans do is terrible, or if you're a Republican, everything the Democrats do is terrible. Nobody can view anything objectively whatsoever, and weigh things with the evidence presented in front of them. They just want to scream and holler and go, but I'm right, they're terrible, but I'm right, they're terrible. Sadly, the closest to the truth is that they're all kind of terrible, because they're all in it for their own greedy, selfish goals. Mm-hmm. We haven't seen any variance from that through, when was the last administration you didn't see that? And now everybody's shocked that Trump's destroying the country. The country is being destroyed, but what does that have to do with Donald Trump? How would this be any different than if...
And I also have to throw this out there, too, because he caught a lot of heat during his administration, particularly from the right side of the fence. The same goes with Barack Obama. The same went with George Bush. The same went with old Bill Clinton. I mean, when was the last president that actually wielded real power? Reagan?
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true at all. I think George Bush Sr. probably did.
Yeah, because again, he was already in on what the narrative was, long before he went into office.
I think Bush
he was
Sr.
there to do the business of the company.
But I don't believe Reagan did too. I don't think he really did. Bush Sr., though, and that's not a positive thing that he had that much power and influence, but I think he did have it.
Yeah, the American public got tired of him awful quick.
They did. But, you had this hillbilly from Arkansas that was a...
You don't like me, though? I'll just make 6 more.
But look, that's it. It's a huge popularity contest, and who's the most charming and which team are you on? Look, Bill Clinton was good at it. Barack Obama was great at it. Trump is not so good at being charming, but
Trump has never, ever, ever. I mean, he can be charming for about 3 seconds if he's got a camera stuffed in his face and he's made up to high heaven. But other than that, when the cameras go off, he's what we see every day on Twitter.
Well,
I mean, you have to give it to Donald Trump. He at least has been consistent.
But that's not necessarily true. And I want to bring up a little bit of history here.
I'm just talking about his demeanor. I'm not talking about the stuff that actually comes out of his mouth. Let's get that straight right now.
But when Trump ran for president under the Reform Party banner in 2000, Pat Buchanan was also running for the Reform Party. Pat Buchanan.
That guy.
Right.
You might as well have said Pat Robertson.
Trump got out and was like, this guy's a racist, this guy's a sexist, this guy's a bigot. The same playbook that they pull on Trump. It's the same. It's the go-to. Now, do people say that about Pat Buchanan? Look, I don't know him. I'm not going to judge anybody for anything. Would you leave him to babysit your kids? Not me personally, but whatever. But the point is Trump was the one using all the offense at the time. And I think the purpose, won't get into this, but the purpose was to crush the Reform Party because of third party blocking the way of a Republican win in previous elections with Ross Perot. So, but anyways, it was Trump saying the exact same stuff that's said about him now. That to me is fascinating when you look at the political strategy of all this. But they tried all that with Trump, and it kind of stuck around. But the Russia stuff, like, that's really, really garnering steam. You have Time Magazine right now, which has a picture of the White House turning into St. Basil's Cathedral, which is, for whatever reason, they're calling it the Kremlin, which it's not the Kremlin, but it's, I guess, scarier looking than the Kremlin. So that's what they went with. That's
one other thing. I'm sorry, and I've got to get this off my chest. One other thing that's really, really burned me since the last show that we did, the Seth Rich story. What is your final take on that? Because as we reported on that Tuesday night, and when you open up your news feed Wednesday, the whole complete story had changed. Well, it had changed sort of. That the family, without a doubt, swore up and down that he had no contact with WikiLeaks. How do they know that? Number one. And number two, where's the computer at? The computer that apparently has all this questionable emails and contacts with WikiLeaks and yada, yada, this, that, and the other.
Where's the video footage at? Washington, D.C.'s covered in CCTVs. My opinion has not changed from that since it happened, especially since Assange came out, offered the reward, made the heavy suggestions that he did, that Seth Rich was one of their...
Well, as heavy of a suggestion as Assange can, while keeping his same principles and standards that he's had throughout the history of WikiLeaks.
I say that, look, the evidence, despite anything that was said this week, one way or another, to be honest, on either side of it, it's not like when the investigators' findings came out, that influenced me. My mind of the evidence had already kind of led me to believe that he is definitely one of the leakers for WikiLeaks, and then he was murdered. And I believe that based not on emotion or not because they would never, oh gosh, that would never.
Because happen. I can't stress this enough to anybody listening to this broadcast. Neither one of us voted for Hillary Clinton and neither one of us voted for Donald Trump. Both of those are terribly, horribly corrupt people. Both of them. And Donald Trump, I don't know exactly how corrupt he is. We're going to find out for too terribly long.
I think he's as corrupt as the rest of them. It's just a different version of corrupt.
Well, and he's been very, very forthright in the fact that, yeah, he's made a bunch of money by playing the game that has been set forth by these people exactly by their rules. He pays his taxes, like it or not. He gets out of whatever taxes he can, like it or not. I mean, he's playing by the rules, at least in that regard. If he had not, trust me, it would have been much more of an issue before he was able to step up on the dais to even be a candidate. But aside from all that, I'm getting off the bunny trail here. the left-wing media really, I mean, just completely slammed the door on this story.
They didn't slam the door. They didn't even open the door. They didn't even
right wing. Well, and again, the few things that I have seen on mainstream media about it the following day, yesterday, were pretty much right out of the bat, right-wing conspiracy, conspiracy, peppered throughout each and every story that I read. Even some stories that I shared that were straight up reporting, went back and clicked on that same link that's still up, on whatever page I posted it up, and the story has completely changed. The narrative has changed, but at the same time, if you go and read the actual story, the headline definitely changed. But if you read the actual story, the story didn't really change that much. It's just the family disagrees with the findings of the investigation.
They changed the narrative around.
Yeah,
but the story didn't change. You're right. When was
and
the
again,
last time?
I think that's why they're so ticked off at the fact that the PI actually went before the media and discussed it, and now we're talking about a confidentiality agreement, and this, that, and the other.
It's all
garbage. And I think they're talking about that because they heard whatever his findings were and disagreed with it. That might be because of their party leanings. I don't know. That would be absolutely sickening and shocking to me. Were the case.
It wouldn't be shocking at me at all. I
mean, that's their own son. If you had a child and your child was murdered, you definitely want to get to the bottom of it. And if that's where it led to, well, shit, these people need to pay, right?
I don't believe that the family is involved in any conspiracy.
No, of course not. But what I'm suggesting is that why it's either one of two things. It's either the fact that they are, again, he was a DNC staffer, and usually, younger folks that are following one way or the other, Democrat or Republican, sometimes are led that way by their folks. I don't know if this is a case of them just, really not wanting to believe in the cognitive dissonance being so strong that they can believe that their own party would do that to one of their own, to their own son, or the fact that they couldn't believe that their son would betray their party in such a way, and they don't want their son to be cast in a negative light after he passed away. There's emotions involved one way or the other, because the parents, they don't know. They actually, somebody suggested, and I don't care who paid the investigator. If that's what the investigator's findings were, which confirmed on what a lot of people suspected right out of the gate, and particularly when Assange just about all but named him directly as the source of the leaks. No, it didn't come from Russia. We're offering a $20,000 reward for Brian Rich to find out who his killer were, and I can't really say any more past that point. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So that's where we're at. I'm really, really, really shocked. I knew that it would get slammed or slandered in some way, but I mean, the immediate 360 that it done. And of course, everybody's pointed at Fox and this rogue reporter and yada, yada, this, that, and the other, so on and so forth. A lot of smoke screen. And again, I'm not disillusioned. I know why the investigator was hired by that particular person. It was certainly partisan politics at play. But it was definitely something worth checking into, because it seems suspicious right out of the gate, particularly with the timing of everything that was happening in that week.
Look, I as far as the family goes, I don't know his family, and I can't comment one way or another about their motivations, their beliefs, or what they think. What I can say is I do think this goes deeper than party politics, but because I think that there are forces involved within the D.C. Police Department. But when was the last time the Democratic Party was involved in any sort of scandal? It doesn't matter what side you're on, what you believe, in anything, that it didn't turn around and it was just automatically met with, this is a right-wing conspiracy.
Yeah.
Automatic. From Benghazi to everything to do with Hillary Clinton in the past 25 years.
Well, now it's not just a right-wing conspiracy. Now it's Russia. And if it's Russia, then it must be, and the right-wingers are disagreeing with us, then they must be in collusion with Russia too.
And what that's about is because they are now bringing together both parties, and they're trying to line themselves up together behind Trump. The establishment is if you pay attention to what's happening in D.C., now this isn't 100% across the board, but for the majority, they're finally starting to lock up arm in arm, and they're doing it behind Trump because Trump gives them the cover to do that, because everybody's so against Trump and everybody hates Trump, is that you have people all of a sudden being like, man, I really miss George W. Bush. Why didn't Jeb win? You know, John McCain, he's not so bad. He hates Trump.
I was wondering when you were gonna bring his name up, because he's definitely at the center of this shitstorm and he's loving every minute of it.
Right, and you get, whether it's Paul Ryan, whoever, everybody's like, oh, they're not so bad because they're not Trump. And you're seeing the Democrats and the Republicans, the establishment, which have been on the exact same side for a long time, except, in kayfabe, they all hate each other, which for people that don't know what that means, it's a term in professional wrestling. It's all scripted. It's all an act. That's what this is. It's an act. And they're kind of letting the curtain down a little bit because they all have a common enemy politically, and that's Donald Trump. Donald Trump being impeached and out of office would be the worst thing that could happen to the establishment right now, because they would lose their cover. They wouldn't have these huge fireworks going off on TV every day to get you to talk about this nonsense and that nonsense. Do they want to stir all this up? Of course they do. But do they actually want him gone? I don't think so, because I don't think that that's going to serve their interest. What's going to ultimately happen with Trump, I can't tell you. But he's definitely aligned himself with the money and the big business. We see it, what he's doing this weekend by going to Saudi Arabia. I've screamed about it on this show for 2 years or more about Saudi Arabia has all the money in the world and they do what they want. And we do what they tell us, basically. And we're seeing it happen over and over and over. And we're not seeing it from somebody like Hillary Clinton that took millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars from them. We're seeing it with somebody that got in a Twitter war with the Saudi prince. We're seeing it with somebody that called out Saudi Arabia for being involved in 9/11, and now he's getting in line with them.
I mean, all up in line, all up in bed with them, rolling out the red carpet and roses and all these huge celebrations. It
is. They're massively celebrating it, and I think that their common aim here has to do with
if somebody comes, if somebody from out of the United States comes over to the United States, we take them like a ball game or something, right? I wonder if over in Saudi Arabia they have a couple beheadings lined up just for Donald Trump.
Oh no, they'll act like they've never beheaded anybody in their life.
Oh, that's crazy talk, my brother.
Yeah, I mean they're gonna pretend like they don't do that, and if they do, well, they were getting rid of some bad ISIS terrorists. That's how they sell it. They've never done anything wrong, and they're finding a common ground for certain with Iran. It's anybody that pays attention to foreign policy knows that Iran is on the wish list of countries to take out. Saudi Arabia and Iran despise each other. The United States has hinted at taking out Iran forever. Israel has talked about taking out Iran forever. We have Benjamin Netanyahu since like 96, 97, mid-90s talking about they're just weeks away from getting a bomb. They're just weeks away from being nuclear capable. They're just weeks away from this. This has been going on for over 20 years. They're not weeks away from anything. It's all propaganda. Does that make the government of Iran some great moral thing? Absolutely not. It doesn't. And that's the well people fall down, is that everything is this and everything is that. It's ridiculous. Like it's that simple, people. It's really that simple that you have to wake up and realize not everything is this and not everything is that. And what's so remarkable is you hear people talking, and the big one's race. You hear, well, not everybody of this race is this, or religion, whatever. Of course, that's 100% true. We're all individuals. We're all individual people. But when it turns into this country or that or whatever, that all goes out the window. And we have to judge all this for being good or all this for being bad. Look, it's human nature and individuals doing stuff. The people of Iran haven't done anything to you. The government of Iran isn't very good. The government of Saudi Arabia isn't very good. The government of the United States isn't very good. And the reason why that is, does that make the people of all these countries terrible? It doesn't. What it means is that power-hungry people all conglomerate, they get together, and it's like a magnet. And you get these greedy, ridiculous people. And in Saudi Arabia, it's a little bit different because it's a royal family. But, you know, they don't have to answer to anybody because they've got all the money in the world and they get to do what they want. As much as being involved in 9/11, we blow apart half the world, and yet nobody cares what they have to do. And they're the only people there's evidence of it going back to. So people have to get past everything's this or everything's that. Look at people for what they are, their actions, what their motivations might be. Why would somebody want to go and do this? Why would somebody want to go and do that? To believe that these nations want to attack or blow up the United States. Well, where have we seen this? What evidence has there been of any of this? Have you seen it, Shannon? I haven't seen any evidence of being attacked by Afghanistan or Iraq or Syria.
No, I'm scanning my news feed right now. I'm not seeing a single tweet or anything of that nature stating that we have been attacked by either Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq. I don't know. I mean, you know, when you're camped out in somebody's yard, they'll definitely want to shoot at you after they've told you to leave so many times. I don't know, man.
Well, of course you have skirmishes and whatever's going on between soldiers and militias or armies in the Middle East. But guess what?
And it all looks to me like a bunch. It all looks to me like a bunch of get out of my yard. That's what it really looks like to me, as far as you know, any involvement, military involvement of aggression towards the United States military that's camped out in their yard. Last time I checked, and I look at a map every once in a while to see if either Russia or the Middle East has moved closer to the United States and actually borders us or is a part of our country. It's not. We have no business over there. We haven't had business over there for years and years and years. But the problem is we have a lot of business over there. Business, money. That's what this is all about. It's a big old cash grab.
And speaking of Saudi Arabia, I want to mention this too. We've got another story under your news right now. In the middle column of the antimedia.org is a new Saudi firm is to boost the kingdom's defense production. Already, it's one of the world's biggest defense spenders. I think it's in the top 3 or 4. But Saudi Arabia said today that it is creating a new military industries firm as part of efforts to boost the kingdom's defense production. The government-owned company, Saudi Arabian Military Industries, aims to become one of the world's top 25 defense companies by 2030. So basically, is Saudi Arabia is trying to get their own defense business going because I guess they're buying so much from us. They're saying they're just going to try to keep it in-house. I don't think it's coincidence that this was announced 2 days before Trump is to land in Saudi Arabia. I'm sure that the United States
drive the price down a little bit, maybe.
I'm sure that the United States will be there to help in any way they can. American defense contractors are obviously major suppliers of weapons in Saudi Arabia, which has led to a coalition conducting airstrikes and other operations against rebels in Yemen for more than 2 years. The Saudi Arabian military industries will be a manufacturer and a service provider, so that they will be able to produce and maintain, whether it's to repair, produce drones, military vehicles, blah, blah, blah. More war. The military complex is growing larger. It's supposedly going to create more than 40,000 jobs. What does Trump talk about? Jobs, jobs, jobs. I believe that a lot of Trump's wrapping up stuff in the Middle East, while this is specifically what we're talking about, Saudi Arabia, I think a lot of what he's doing in the Middle East is so he can say, well, the economy's doing better. Because A, nobody pays attention to what's going on outside of the borders of the United States. And two, that, hate to say it, but you know what? That'll prop up the economy and make it look good on paper.
Well, what was the meme that went around there for a while about had Obama on it saying, something about it posted like $1.87 in gas prices or something like that. It has him doing the little pointing at the camera thing he's doing, you're welcome or something like that. Like these people, like the people that are elected for president actually create these things and all they do is just stand back, let the machine do what it does and take credit for whatever they can.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Sad. And that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's what it is. And I just wish people could wake up, and I harp on it so much because nobody pays attention. Nobody's listening. Saudi Arabia and the United States, the connection between those two countries is so vital to what happens throughout the world. And it is so corrupt. And nobody can see it for what it is. It is mind-blowing to me how not every person on the planet can look at this and go, wait, something's not right here. What's going on? And no, everybody's more concerned about talking about Twitter accounts and James Comey and testimony we've already had 2 weeks ago and make-believe memos or whatever they are, because theater, people love the theater. And that's what they're getting. They're getting a fantastic show. You don't even have to subscribe to cable to get it. You can just, find some free Wi-Fi and get some free show of Donald Trump.
I haven't had cable in years, man, and I haven't missed a single thing.
Yeah. So between what we've got going on this weekend with Trump visiting Saudi Arabia, between the U.S. bombing Syrian convoy today, it's just more of the same. This isn't Tuesday. It was Tuesday, Shannon. We were talking about how, was it Tuesday? We were talking about 30 civilians were killed, 87 civilians killed in Syria in the past week and a half now? It's probably more than that.
And we're not talking about ISIS fighters. We're talking about civilians, normal people, just like you and I, that are minding their own business, and bam, a bomb drops on their head.
And we're not getting that in the news, but you get it when they can make it political. They'll paint that picture. I opened the show about how they want to put 50,000 more troops in Afghanistan. How does nobody, people want to argue about education, or they want to argue about health care. They want to argue about, we're broke. And part of the big reason that we are broke is because of our spending overseas. This is about greed. This is about corruption. This isn't about the will of the people. This is about a machine, the military-industrial complex. I don't care how old it gets, how cliche it sounds. That is what is happening. And until that changes, nothing's going to change. Nothing. We have to stop policing the world for a million different reasons. And Trump is by far not backing away from that. I get what he said when he ran for president. How's that working out? Obama said the same thing. How'd that work out?
Hope and change. Remember all that hope and change we got?
George W. Bush said the same thing. How did that work out? So if you want to be upset at Trump, know what you're being upset about. But if you just want to hear what Anderson Cooper said and you just want to scream, impeach, everything will be better if Mike Pence is in office, you know nothing. You know nothing about what's going on in the world, and you've been hoodwinked and you've been taken for a ride. Mm-hmm. It's for people like us. It's for people, the listeners of this show, for all of us, for the people that are awake, to say, look, enough is enough. We have to do something about what's going on with foreign policy overseas. We have to get out of bed with these military industrial complex businesses with this. It's infuriating to me. It's infuriating. And I know I'm just going on a rant now, but when is anybody going to do anything? When is anybody just going to at least diagnose the problem? There's lots of people out there that have diagnosed it, and they're all called crazy. They're all called conspiracy theorists. They're all called this or that. Well, guess what? Those people have been right every step of the way. And the people that think they're right have been wrong every single time. How many times does somebody have to be wrong before they go, maybe I'm going to listen to somebody else?
I don't see it happening anytime soon, put it that way.
Well, who knows? And then you've got, I don't know if anybody heard about this, but as far as the Saudi trip, one more thing to touch on is that the Sudanese president, Omar al-Bashir, is a wanted war criminal, wanted for multiple war crimes. He was invited and will be attending. It's not said if they will address the summit with Trump at the same time, or he will even meet with him, but he will be there. He's evaded arrest since his indictment by the International Criminal Court in 2009 for alleged genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity related to the conflict in Darfur, in which at least 300,000 people have been killed. So, yeah, that's great. That's just fantastic. Nobody cares because what? We got to talk about some memos. Let's talk about memos. Tell me more about a memo, Anderson.
I'm sure he will here in just a little bit.
I don't get it. Like, I don't understand what is wrong with people. And I know this has just gone into a rant and completely off the rails.
Well, and we've seen systematic, and this has been going on for quite a while. Systematic programming has finally taken hold, is what we're seeing. And a bunch of people know exactly what to do when they hear some stuff like this. Oh, that's just a bunch of crazy talk. Exactly like what they were taught. There's no sense in trying to think for yourself or trying to work through any kind of solution to our problems in government. All we need to do is just keep voting. We'll just vote a little harder next time. Hey, get your friends and your family and everybody. We'll all vote hard. And I've seen since George W. Bush, since 2000, seen 3 different guys do exactly the same thing. And they've all promised vastly different things before they came into office. But it seems like the same agenda, that whether they campaign for it or against it, is still happening. So, we all know about the definition of insanity. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do now?
I can't tell you, but I'm just going to keep pounding this. On Wednesday, this week, yesterday, 23 civilians, including 6 children and women, were killed in an airstrike in Yemen by guess who? Saudi Arabia and the Saudi coalition forces. A military source with Saudi Arabia says that, it appears that 20 civilians died and blamed it as a result of a quote-unquote mistake. There's a lot of mistakes going on in this world, and nobody wants to take responsibility for anything because people go, well, they didn't mean to do it. The President of the United States is going to Saudi Arabia this weekend, yesterday, 23 civilians. And that's not, we can talk about what the United States does too. We all do it here.
And look, if that happened inside the borders of the United States and 23 people died because of a mistake, quote unquote, somebody, doesn't matter who, it might be, a Ferris wheel ride operator, or it might be, the drug company, on duty supervisor when the drug that actually got tainted with some poison was made. You know what I'm saying? If there was some sort of accident that happened that caused 23 people to die, someone must pay. And that's pretty much how it is here in America right now.
It is.
And there's a big outcrying, and something needs to be done about it. And we need legislation, and we need government to come in and resolve this issue and make sure that this mistake doesn't happen again. Think of the women and children.
But you have to remember, in the United States, that the story would be changed, and you would never actually hear what happened.
Yeah, and it depends on who the person was that created that quote unquote accident and whether it was really accident at all.
And they would use it. They would use a tragedy and turn it into their benefit, and they would use it to serve their agenda because that's what they do best. When something terrible happens in this country, whether there's events that are false flags, manufactured, or they just happen, it doesn't matter, because what does matter is how do they handle these situations. And they always handle them by trying to gain the upper hand and advancing their own greedy, selfish, self-serving agendas. It happens every single time. If you don't believe me, go to an airport. The Patriot Act, the NSA, everything in this country via terrorism in the past 16 years has been flipped on us, where freedom is a shell of itself. You may have certain freedoms, but you really don't, because you're always under somebody's watch. And for the people that say, but if you're not doing anything wrong, that's fine. If you believe that, knock yourself out and believe it. But do not dare suggest that you are proud to live in a free country, because you are not. If you're happy with saying it's okay because I'm not doing anything, then you don't care about freedom. You're not interested in freedom. You're only interested in what you're doing. You don't care about freedom, and you'd be just as happy in a prison because, hey, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not doing anything. Nobody's going to mess with me. And that's people's mentality, and it's sad. It's a very sad, sad day. It's a sad state of affairs. Nothing has changed. The theater, I think, is a positive thing only because chaos. I think the chaos needs to reign supreme so people can wake up and go, this is outrageous. There has to be more to this. I say that, but I don't know if it's really waking people up like it could have or should, because I think people have taken the bait so hard with Donald Trump's the worst person ever and everybody else is great. They've really taken the bait on that, which is just amazing. I think people that just solely line up directly that Trump's the enemy and everybody else is fine, Washington knows what they're doing. People say what they want about Trump supporters, and I get it. I think they got hoodwinked and, taken down the path of the piper. But let me tell you, the people that just completely line up to hate him and don't think there's anybody else wrong in Washington, I don't even know what to say. There can't be many IQ points coming back as a result on that test.
God, and Mike Pence is president. Ugh.
Any of them.
We might as well just go and get Marco Rubio and Ted Prissy Pants.
Look,
Cruz.
I don't care if you're talking about Chuck Schumer, Elizabeth Warren, Ted Cruz, Paul Ryan. I don't care which one you're talking about. They all serve themselves, and I don't see any examples of them really serving the people. They serve themselves, and they serve their masters. And those, of course, are the lobbyists. Those are the people with the money. Those are the people with the campaign contributions. They do what they're told when they're told.
Yep.
How high am I supposed to jump? And they can put on whatever show that they want to put on when the cameras were on them. That's great. You're a fantastic actor. I'm really, really proud of you. But you know what? You should have gone to Hollywood instead of to Washington, because now you're screwing people over for a living. And it goes past acting. That's it for us. For Shannon, Jake is next. We'll be back next week. Anti-Media Radio. I am SM Gibson. Anti-Media Radio out.
Through the stereo, go and let it blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.